So Megan Rapinoe, for those of you who don't know, is the U.S. women's soccer player who refused to stand for the national anthem because she said America is a fundamentally racist place. She refused to take a trip to the White House when Donald Trump invited the U.S. women's soccer team, which won the championship in 2019 in France, to come to the White House to celebrate the fact that they had won the World Cup. She refused to go. She bullied, according to a lot of reports, other members of the soccer team into making that same choice. She tried to bully them all into kneeling. She is not a good person in terms of the way that she's used her platform, in my opinion, politically. She's been divisive. And also, a lot of you out there who do pay attention to sports actually loved that the final moment of Megan Rapinoe's World Cup career, Buck, was her airmailing a penalty kick at the end of the game to try to beat, I think it was, I can't even remember, Sweden maybe, one of those countries beat us. I think it was Sweden. But she airmailed it, went far right, ironically enough, on her miss, which shouldn't happen, obviously, for a star in soccer. So she is married to Sue Bird, Buck. Sue Bird is, I believe, half Jewish and has an Israeli passport. Sue Bird is a very talented women's basketball player. Megan Rapinoe, lesbian, married to Sue Bird. She is raising money on her Instagram account for people in Gaza. Buck, she has a BLM head photo. She has her pronouns in her bio, of course. She has the gay pride flag, I believe. I'm trying to zoom in. I can't tell for sure, but I think that's what it is. And she is married to a Jewish woman who has Israeli citizenship that could have been murdered if she had happened to be in that area that Hamas invaded. She is a lesbian woman living and married under the protections of the United States. She would be murdered, probably stoned to death, in Hamas for being a lesbian who's married to an Israeli. I don't think there's any doubt about this. Yet the politics of her branding is so broken that she is raising money for Hamas. And I think all of those are a lot of details, but I think it's emblematic of the collapse of the entire identity politics universe. And I think I know this. There are tons of people listening to us right now, Buck, who are Jewish, who would have never listened to us before, but have been tipped off, gotten notification, hey, these guys are 100% right. They're calling terrorists. And there's almost no one in media who will do it. It's crazy.
You know, you see the conflation in a sense, although there is some connective tissue with all these causes, other than just, I think, being wrong on the issue. That's a connection. But all of a sudden, BLM, trans rights, racial justice, climate change, anti-colonialism, Palestine, all this stuff is wrapped together. And you say, what is going on here? Like, what kind of mass delusion are people operating under? I mean, how could it, reach this point? And you also have something else going on that I find, I know why they're doing it. Barack Obama put out a statement yesterday. And it was
like a reading list, right? He put out a list of things to read.
Well, he put out a reading list, but he also put out a statement on the conflict. And there's this thing now, and Tony Blinken, whom I have it on good authority from friends in the national security side, on the career side, is an incompetent. Just so you know, I really ask people. I say, look, I disagree with the guy, but is he really sharp? Does he really know what time it is? They say no. He's a kind of a classic company man for the government buffoon. But Blinken was doing the same thing today in remarks this morning. And what they do is they keep saying, oh, well, we want to remind Israel to act in a humanitarian fashion. And this just gives more, gives more cover, in a sense, to the people walking around saying, stop the genocide in Gaza. There's no genocide going on in Gaza, okay? If Hamas could commit a genocide in Israel, it would do so, and it says it would do so. It has shown us that it has the willingness based on the actions of this terrorist attack, but it says openly, from the river to the sea, get rid of all of the Jews. It is calling for a genocide and ethnic cleansing of Jews from the state of Israel. That is effectively Hamas's charter. On the other side of things, Israel is taking time to negotiate for hostages, to work with allies, to try to limit, when the ground invasion starts, civilian casualties, to prepare for the possibility of a northern front. There's already been some exchanges of rocket fire in the north with Hezbollah. Israel's making all these preparations. And Barack Obama's putting out a statement to tell Israel that it's in its interest to, conduct itself in the most humanitarian fashion possible. Yeah, they know, Clay. You know what I mean? Like, this is, it's the Babylon Bee put out a what do you call it? A meme today that I thought really did get to this, and it was Emperor Hirohito calls for ceasefire after bombing of Pearl Harbor. I mean, that's a little bit of what we're seeing. The ceasefire calls after this mass casualty terror attack. If somebody was calling for a ceasefire after 9/11, you would have thought that they were out of their mind, or that they were just nefarious and that they thought America, wanted it. What you're hearing now are ceasefire calls simultaneously with there's a stop the genocide in Gaza. There is no genocide in Gaza. That is a lie. And the Israelis are not trying to conduct, nor will they conduct a genocide in Gaza. But these are the two ways that they try to take the victimizers, Hamas, and make them the victims.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, where social media can become dangerous. And I mean this. Whatever you believe, there is a viral video out there that you can post to justify your side's position. So whatever videos are out there, and by the way, nowadays, the technology's gotten so advanced, you don't even know if the videos are real, but there are going to be young, innocent people in Palestine that die as a result of the Hamas terror attack, which has created a necessity for a response from Israel. So you can be simultaneously of the opinion that you never want a civilian to die, which I think all good and reasonable people are, and also simultaneously understand that war is hell and that fighting is going to mean that there are deaths sometimes of innocents. And it's always important to remember that there are just wars. And if Hamas and Palestine did not want to be in a war, then they shouldn't have started a friggin' war. And I think the analogy is good for Emperor Hirohito. I think it's really very persuasive for people out there after 9/11. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, Buck, if while we're still watching and standing in the rubble of the World Trade Centers, there had been legitimate arguments being made by Congress people that it was necessary that there be a ceasefire because we didn't want to hurt innocent people in our pursuit of Al-Qaeda?
Bad faith demands for peace can actually be used as a weapon, depending on when you are making those demands, right? If all of a sudden, if Japan, I think back to, I think it's Dead of Honor, the Tom Clancy novel, which is the Tom Clancy novel where he flies, this is pre 9/11, a Japanese pilot to get revenge on the U.S., flies a plane into a joint session of Congress and, hits the Capitol building. Pre 9/11. Anyway, a little bit of a shock when you go back in history and think about this. But Clay, part of that is the Japanese effectively launch. The plot, the novel's plot is the Japanese seize back a bunch of territories in the Pacific. They do so very rapidly with pretty minimal U.S. loss of life, and they say, guys, let's just call it quits right here. They also secretly develop nuclear missiles, right? So like, guys, we're done. Let's leave it here. And you say, well, hold on a second, we're done now? After the violations have occurred, right? I mean, it's completely contrary to a sense of justice and also contrary to a sense of security because there's an ongoing threat from Hamas. It's not like Hamas has retreated. People are talking about, the lessons we've learned in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah, but geographically, this would be like, New Jersey launching a terror attack against New York. They're right next to each other. They share a border. You can't just say, okay, we're going to let this one go. You're far away. Maybe we'll figure out peace in the future. They're an ongoing threat, Clay. That's the part of this that people, they're still firing off rockets.
Yeah, it's a little bit like if a cartel came across our southern border, killed 1,400 people, and then went back across the southern border, and Mexico tried to say, hey, you shouldn't respond to the cartels. We need a ceasefire.
Mexico demands ceasefire after 1,400 Americans killed by cartel. That's exactly what the similar, or I should say not exactly, but that's a very close situation to what we're seeing here. That's why the ceasefire demands, the stop the genocide demands, I mean, they're using this term genocide just because it's so emotionally loaded. To use the term genocide wrongly to stop the Jewish people from defending themselves is a particularly disgraceful thing.
Well, particularly because Hamas actually would do a genocide if they could, and the 1,400 people they killed are emblematic of what their genocide would look like.
This is the inversion of reality and morality at the same time.